Rewind-a-dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Rewind-a-Dynamite begins now. I'm John Pollock, along with Mr. Ting. First name Wai. How are you?
Doing good, John. Yourself?
I'm doing splendid.
How is it? Your first, this almost, it's almost a full week back for you now. How do you feel?
Exhausted. It's a work in progress. We're figuring out a schedule that will work.
Tell me about it. Tell me about your day. Like, how do you juggle everything?
Listen, the MVP in this entire thing is my wife. I would, if not for her, there would be nothing. I would be doing nothing. So first and foremost, it's just the combination of trying to get back to work. But like the last time, it was like I had an office space to go to, which was, probably, I got to get out of the house. It was, it's just tougher when I'm trying to do this stuff here. And, if there's some issue going on, I can't just ignore it. I have to be able to leave and help. And, it's just finding all of that with, just all the curveballs that a 3 and 3, now 4-week-old can provide.
3 and 4 weeks old, man.
Not even 4 weeks.
Not even. Wow. And nonetheless, you still managed to, find the time to provide the news, your constant updates on the website, and of course, tonight's review.
Yes, I got it done. So listen, anytime I get one of these updates done or I'm on this show, listen, that's a point. I will take that as a win. The fact that I got it done. I was running behind tonight. I was a minute late, so not too bad.
Oh, not bad at all. It's normal. So we all thank you for it. And again, I know it's a work in progress determining the schedule. So, please, I don't know, let us know if you need help.
Oh, I will absolutely let you know, Mr. Ting. How about you? How is the world going for you this particular week?
It's been all right. Yeah, it's been good. A pretty busy, productive day.
You were signing and sending out a lot of mail today.
Yeah, 200 postcards being sent all across the world to our double ice cap and espresso patrons. Sending out some Christmas cards to all of you. So look for those in the mail, hopefully relatively shortly before Christmas. If you are a member of those tiers or have been a member of those tiers over the past year and don't get one, I suppose until I don't know, in January maybe you can let me know. But yeah, John and I, we signed a bunch of postcards, handwrote messages on all of them, and I sent all those out today. So it's been something I've been wanting to do for quite a while, with a design by Shining Wizards Designs. Of,
Matt Charlton, yes, he's got a new photo book that is currently available.
Yes, of Eggshell's fame. Yeah, big fan of his style. So if you go on our social media, on our Instagram or Twitter, you'll see the wonderful postcard he designed for us.
Imagine, I know they do not live in the same country, but when they get together, imagine those New Japan conversations between Chris and Matt Charlton.
I imagine they'd be quite in depth. Both containing, both have a great knowledge of that history.
Actually, we have a podcast in the archives where you can actually hear that conversation of the brothers Charlton.
Eggshells. That's right. Yes, the Eggshells podcast. That is still up there on this very feed if you listen and scroll down all the way. But yeah, I'm sure they talk about their fandom and how they both got into wrestling together. So you know what I learned today? What our mutual friend Rick told me? The bookstore.
Mutual friend Rick.
Oh, Rick, the Chinese wrestling audio.
Oh, of course, yes, your man. Yeah.
So he let me know that the bookstore next to Korakuen Hall is permanently closing.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you and I got to visit it, but it's evidently some sort of, major hangout for a lot of wrestling fans typically. That's closing down.
Oh, that's too bad. Always unfortunate when you hear about bookstores closing, and I feel that that's going to be a major casualty in all of this is like small chain bookstores.
Well, what next, man? TGIF? That can't go.
Everything. I read this. Did you read that about that church here in Toronto that is protesting the fact that they are only allowed to have 10 people at their particular venue? It's an indoor church that houses 1,100 people at its maximum, and they believe that they should be allowed to have their 30% allotment because it goes against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's discriminating against religion, and that in the scriptures it says that you must have your faith and celebrate it in person.
I've seen some of that going around, really everywhere, but even in Ontario, and it's not just Christianity or the church that's kind of making this argument. This is going to be a big test, like these next few weeks, Christmas.
This is the worst time to be making this argument, and I'm sorry. Like I can only have so much sympathy for those out there. I could make a strong case of any small business that's going through hell right now. Churches, I'm sure. Listen, I'm not a religious person, but I completely respect those that are part of a community. But this is dangerous right now. This is what scripture says. This is a life and death scenario. Our numbers are through the fucking roof in Ontario. We are doing astronomical cases by our standards. And we just learned a pretty valuable lesson after Thanksgiving, which is only going to be compounded by the Christmas holidays. And we're arguing for stuff like this. Like, this is the grandest test of us needing to say, listen, we have to take more sacrifices, not less, and stop quibbling over every inconvenience. Yes, this year has been a gigantic inconvenience, way more so than most for others. I'm so annoyed by some of this stuff. It's just reckless to me that you're trying to do this. Like, everyone can make an argument that is going to pull at your emotional heartstrings that things cannot be done. But that goes for everybody. Rant over.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people who listen to this podcast are well aware of I think, how we feel about the whole situation. It's an internal question, I think, for a lot of other people. If you're by December of 2020, perhaps still feeling a certain way, I don't really know what's going to get you to change your mind. But many people have limits, and Christmas, I think, for many people, when all this stuff happened, like, I remember when all this stuff was starting to get discussed in China, because I'm somewhat plugged into Chinese news, and much of the discussion at that point was Chinese New Year, like that. It takes place typically like end of January, February, right when it was still kind of contained outside of North America. And like, one of the big concerns was, man, how are they going to get people to not visit family during Chinese New Year? And much of the concern was, I guess, citizens following those rules. And, at that point, we were still somewhat removed from it, thinking like, oh man, well, it's just Chinese New Year. Like, just come on, just chill out. Now people are basically faced with like the biggest holiday here, which is Christmas. Mm-hmm. And now they're very much faced with that same dilemma. And I think, in the case of at least what you were just talking about, many people finding it, I feel like I have less faith, actually, even in this part of the world.
You have less faith in religious institutions?
No, less faith in the people being able to contain themselves and not celebrate something as big as Christmas.
Well, I think, listen, Thanksgiving to me is it's a significant holiday, but it pales in comparison to Christmas. Like, if there is ever a several day period where people are going to feel that it's going to override whatever judgment they've had all year, it's going to be Christmas.
It's going to be Christmas, and it's also going to be New Year's Eve. So
I'm interested of what are your options going to be on New Year's Eve? Like, there's not going to be. like there's not going to be the same kind of places to go on New Year's Eve, but I don't doubt the fact that there's going to be people that are going to get together on New Year's Eve. It's just you don't have like the places to go to, and are people just going to simply get together with friends and stuff in lieu of going to a club or wherever?
I think the answer is yes, for many people, but this is also.
I'll tell you where I'm going to be on New Year's Eve. I'm going to be in this basement of mine. That's where I'm going to be eating Chinese food or something. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not leaving this place.
I'm perfectly comfortable, like not going anywhere. I understand, like, man, I'm probably very different from a lot of other people that really, I think, for whatever reason require sociability. I do to an extent, but yeah, I'm perfectly fine, like not leaving at all. Anyway, it's this all comes at the same time as, like, of course, the news of vaccines being distributed is that's really kind of making all the headlines right now. So,
did you hear the name of one of the very first people to receive the vaccine?
No.
William Shakespeare.
Get out of here! Really?
Guy's name was William Shakespeare. They're giving it to like the oldest people in England. There's a guy literally named William Shakespeare.
They definitely found the oldest
among
guy.
the first. Yeah. So
they should only find names of, like, I don't know, like people with interesting names to vaccinate first. We have to save
all
those.
About the stories involved in all of this. If you were presented with the option tomorrow for this vaccine, are you all in? You're taking this vaccine?
No, I'm not.
You're not? Really?
Not. I don't want to be the first crop. Like, I'm just being honest. I'm going to give this thing maybe like 6 months if people haven't grown, a third arm or anything yet.
There is a lot of that skepticism of, those that are, it's like, why are we the first country to be having this? It's, I think it's a reasonable concern. If it was presented to me,
let me explain, John. Like, number one,
yeah.
I'm not necessarily somebody who's like constantly in that work environment. And
fair enough.
I'm not at higher risk. Like, I've been able to distance pretty well. So I feel like I can take that risk. There are several people out there perhaps who can't afford to take that risk. People who are older who desperately need something like this.
I'm not saying if it was a limited amount and you'd be taking it from somebody more in need. I'm just saying if there was, a surplus of vaccine and you were presented with this,
I guess I would
still want to wait.
I mean, maybe I'm just a bit of a natural skeptic when it comes to something like this too, and also the fact that it was somewhat rushed. I trust a lot of the science that's out there. I trust the fact that it's like, everybody who created this thing knows what they're doing. They're rushing it for a good reason, and that all the precautions are being taken. I suppose if all things considered, I would probably still wait at least a little bit just to see how people react.
What's your prediction on when you and I, same age, same country, same location, will be faced with the option of getting the vaccine? I'm predicting by like next September.
I mean, that sounds about right. I would say maybe summer. Yeah, maybe September, something like that. Maybe a year from now.
Mm-hmm. Well, vaccines are coming.
Anyway,
which is the AEW special that got turned down.
Vaccines are coming. That's next year.
Let's get into what is going on. I do want to mention that just for the month ahead, I know that AEW, they're plotting out their whole December and January. We may not have Snoop Dogg coming to the post office, but we have a lot of great stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks. Some highlights will include the annual Christmas show that will be dropping on Christmas Eve. We've also got the best and worst of 2020. And our best of show is going to be dropping on Tuesday, December 29th. And we're going to be doing a different spin on the best of show. It's going to be a live edition of the best of show with Braden and Davey joining the two of us. And it will be live for all members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. So if you're a Cafe member, there's a lot of cool stuff coming up over the next month that I think will be worth the Cafe membership.
It'll be live also for Up Next patrons as well. So that, as always, is a joint production between Post Wrestling and our friends at Up Next. That'll take place on Tuesday, December 29th, as John said, live, released early for patrons of either of our Patreons, and then released to the public a few days after.
We'll also have coverage of both Wrestle Kingdom shows, which are creeping up on us. Probably a lot of news for the Tokyo Dome will be coming out of Friday's show, which is going down at Budokan Hall. So we will have coverage of that. And later on this week, we've got the British Wrestling Experience dropping Thursday with guest Rich Fan joining Martin and Beto. Way and I are live Friday night at 10:15 Eastern Time with Rewind to SmackDown for patrons. And then Saturday, it's the UFC 256 post show with Phil and Eric. Sunday, we've got Post Pro Res with WH Park and his guest, Joey Bay, this month. And it caps off with Total Recall with Wai Ting and Pauline for our cafe members to catch us up on Total Bellas, who I just randomly turned on the TV today, and there are the Bellas on the Kelly Clarkson show.
Is that right? Wow.
They're everywhere.
I didn't know Kelly Clarkson had a show.
I didn't know that the Bellas were on the Kelly Clarkson show when I turned it on, but look at that.
Were they in-studio guests?
In-studio guests.
Interesting. Yeah. Have you seen much of the Drew Barrymore show?
Maybe one of the first shows I saw when she had Tom Green on. I saw that.
Yeah. So did you know that interview was completely conducted virtually?
I think I knew that, but I can't say that jumped out as... Why? Was it presented as not being... being like in person?
Like it was Tom... So I learned about this later because like Tom Green was actually in a studio in front of a green screen and they superimposed him sitting on like the same couch that she had in studio. Okay,
I did not know this at all. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's kind of cool that they faked it.
Yeah, I mean, and they didn't really completely try to hide it. Like they showed you like a behind the scene video of how it was all done, but you know, to the untrained eye, like me or you wouldn't really know it. So that might be the future.
Imagine like just the technical issues that could come with that. Like cut, and you just have like 8 minutes of silence between the two as they're trying to get something back in sync. It's like
or the lag, yeah. Like you know how like Skype lag. What did you say? Even though you're sitting like 2 feet away from each other.
Drew, I've never that love so much and come back. Me.
It's not bad. That and everybody, that was John Pollock doing an impression of Tom Green talking via Skype on front of a virtual set with his ex-wife.
Well, join the Post Wrestling Cafe. That was the whole roundabout plug that I was giving out to everybody. Anything else you want to mention, Way, before we head off to news?
Well, on the feed right now, yesterday we released a couple of shows. Our Lucha Underground review from Ultima Lucha #1 was our latest release on Rewind-a-Way. And I don't know if you seen or heard about this week's MLW, John, but perhaps a bit of a revival of a certain Lucha Underground character. We did not time this at all. Robert Frith, our executive producer, did not time this at all. But this is certainly a week where Lucha Underground might actually be making a few more headlines, courtesy of MLW. And of course, Davey and Andrew Thompson also released a review of last night's edition of Impact, a much talked about, the most watched edition of Impact ever on Twitch, and I imagine just in general in quite some time. So look for that on the Up Next feed or on this feed if you just scroll right below.
You buried the lead. They also defeated Time Travel on Tuesday night. They had a near 2-hour review of Impact posted a minute after Impact.
And a written report from Davey, like all within seconds of the show ending.
Maybe Davey is part of the undead realm and he was able to, just manipulate time and space.
Maybe there are multiple Davies.
Well, go check that show out, and lots of feedback to the interview with Mauro Ranallo. So thanks to everyone that checked that out. Seemed to a lot of people enjoyed that chat and getting an update from Mauro Ranallo, who may, in a roundabout way, have gotten Snoop Dogg a wrestling gig.
You think so?
Well, I mean, he had all the buzz coming off of that Tyson fight, and all of a sudden, AEW's booked him for an appearance in January.
I feel like Cody would have known Snoop Dogg from the show he was on, wouldn't he?
No, I'm gonna believe that it was all Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. that set this in motion. I was hoping that Snoop Dogg was going to be the special commentator. He's just listed as special guest, but if 2021 has any hope of being a marked improvement over this year, it's the need for Snoop Dogg and Jim Ross to call a match together.
That would be a dream. Yes. When is that show? The 6th?
January 6th.
Oh, it's
the night against the New Year's Evil show that NXT's doing.
Well, it's too bad because, I mean, that's kind of past the deadline of our best of. I'm sure he would be at least a consideration for best broadcaster.
Well, it goes into the file for next year. My question is, on SmackDown this week, will Sasha Banks be coming out with generic music?
Probably not.
For anyone that thinks, oh, that's a ridiculous idea, this is the company that unbooked Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes when they had a cameo on Dynamite. So let's remember that. News! One of the first times we are leading off with Impact Wrestling. And I'll get into the ratings and how the show performed, but watching the episode mainly, what did you think about the AEW involvement led by the Kenny Omega Don Callis promo, which if you missed Impact, they aired a replay of the promo during AEW tonight, live. And we got an involvement from Tony Khan with Tony Schiavone.
You know, going into the show, I feel like expectations were maybe a little overinflated. You know, for a show that I knew was probably the bulk of which was taped weeks ago, I wasn't expecting a whole lot of AEW involvement throughout the entire thing. I was really just expecting, like, I don't know, maybe like 2-3 minute inserted segment at the end. And I think what we got was more substantial than that. I thought they did a good job kind of like, you know, teasing you throughout the show with the shot of the bus and just the feeling that this was coming up. And I think what many people didn't expect was the added special feature of Tony Khan talking to Tony Schiavone in front of a paid advertising, a la, you know, the classic, what is it, like Mid-Atlantic, you know, types of updates that Tony Schiavone used to do. And
they've been using that backdrop for online promo work.
Oh, they have? Okay.
Just recently they've started that.
Yeah, and what many people got, you know, in addition to Kenny Omega and Don Callis, was a Tony Khan participating in this invasion storyline, playing somewhat of an exaggerated version of himself on at least on Impact, being more of a kind of like, you know, heel promoter who looks down upon the competition. And I thought it was really entertaining. I thought he was a lot of fun. I thought his little kind of like, you know, digs at Impact with Tony Schiavone, talking about Tony Schiavone's history with it for one day and then Tony leaving for the next 18 years after spending a cup of coffee there, was very fun. Him referencing perhaps wanting to scope out some of the Impact tag teams, I think completely tells you what to expect. You know, that plus the interaction with Rich Swann at the end of the show, where Rich Swann is denied access to you know, a certain area backstage because the real champion is here. I think all but tells you to expect a lot more about this crossover than just Kenny Omega.
Yeah, I thought that my gripe with the Tony Khan and Schiavone spot was not so much any of the promo. Like that part was fine. To me, it was just the whole aesthetic of it. Like, it felt like it was something that was shot for like Southpaw Regional Wrestling. Like with the font on the screen, like to me, it just looked very infomercial. So, which must have been the look they were going for, but I just don't know why.
So I mean, I didn't realize that they are actually using this for promotional material. But like, is that the tone that they're going for with those other promotional items?
I mean, it's more so just, it's like a throwback with the backdrop. But I mean, even just with like the very basic generic font that just seemed out of like another era of television.
Yeah, wasn't that the point?
I guess that was the point. But to me, it's like you are representing AEW. You're not like this throwback company. You're not a nostalgia based company. It is, to me, like it just kind of made AEW feel kind of cheap. It just didn't fit the look of AEW or the feel of AEW in any way.
My guess is that maybe they just had this set, that they were using anyway, and Tony probably just happened to be there and just probably shot this thing in one take. Perhaps.
Like, seriously, for the tone of what they were going for, like, we're the big company, they should have done it, like, in the middle of Daly's place. Like, here is this millionaire, Tony Khan, like, play up the role that you're espousing here on Impact. Like, to me, you could just shoot it at Daly's place, make him look like this big shot.
Some of it, I definitely think, like, that little paid advertising thing was definitely meant to be pretty tongue in cheek. Like, just even in Tony Khan's very casual body language, crossing his arms the entire time, it did not like it was something that required, multiple takes. I think they wanted to convey the idea that it was just like, so kind of like, somewhat beneath them to like put that much production into it as well. Something to convey that this was not perhaps, your typical serious Tony Khan, more of a character Tony Khan.
When is Ed Nordholm walking out on Daly's place?
I don't know if that'll ever happen. I mean, has he ever been on screen on Impact yet?
I'm sure he's appeared on screen, just not. We will see what happens next. I came out of the show thinking like there's a decent shot that Kenny Omega and Rich Swann, maybe that headlines TNA's pay-per-view next month.
Man, I definitely think they're going to do that match. Do you think that they would actually give it to an Impact pay-per-view rather than... I think it would benefit both companies to actually have that match on a Dynamite or something more, with more eyeballs watching on AEW. But if it's going to be for the Impact title, perhaps it makes sense to put it on Impact.
Like, literally, for Impact, you would almost want everything to be done on AEW programming. But, I mean, here, doing the promo, I mean, this was huge. This was the biggest episode of Impact ever on Access. Just to get into some of the numbers here. So, they did 221,000 viewers on Access, a 0.08 in the demo, which, to put into contrast here, we don't have, like, every single number that Impact has done on Access, but Brandon Thurston has done a pretty good job of recapping, like, what data is known. This is the highest number that is known publicly that Impact's ever done on Access, topping their first episode on Access. They also... When the show ended on Twitch, they were at over 55,000 live viewers. The previous high on Twitch was 15,449 for a show with Impact versus Lucha Underground over WrestleMania weekend in 2018. So this resulted in 40,000 more viewers than their previous high. They were also very smart to throw the entire episode on YouTube right afterwards for those that don't have access or don't have the Fight Network in Canada.
Completely, absolutely. I think, if you're Impact, this was really the biggest blessing you could have been given. Arguably the hottest company. Yeah, definitely. The hottest company in North America right now. And their top star, their brand new champion, having just won the title, his first appearance was going to be on your show. And, outside of course, featuring that segment, you had an entire show of 2 hours to feature and showcase your own roster. And I think people watching Impact for the first time in a long time would have probably, in my opinion, left with like a pretty good impression of what Impact currently represents. It was an episode that showcased a lot of talents that I think people were either familiar with from the past or maybe had heard a lot about, but never really kind of took the time to actually check out. So I definitely think it was like an incredible opportunity for Impact, and one that you would want everybody to see as much as possible.
I also got the top 10 sports programs in Canada on Tuesday, and while I wasn't expecting, like, if ever there was a week Impact might crack the top 10 sports programs, you would think this would be it. They did not. They were not registered in the top 10. The 10th program was just under 28,000 viewers, but I mean,
it's Fight
Network has a much lower scope, so it was like I was not expecting that they would be doing that level of viewership, but nonetheless, the American number that we do have, very good for Impact. And I guess the next question was there enough on Tuesday that there will be a ripple effect that people are going to tune in next week expecting more?
Yeah, so really interesting that tonight on Dynamite, we got no more real teases about, tune in next Tuesday on Impact for the next chapter of this story. You got no indication of that. I mean, always on social media, they could do something. I imagine because it's such a major storyline, they'll probably do something for it. Even if it was just simply like Rich Swann reacting to it or something like that. Something to make it seem like it's a relevant part of this entire AEW Impact thing. I would definitely tune in just, to see that. So I hope that there's something and that it's not just a 1 week thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can definitely say that at least of the Anthem era, I would say this has probably been the biggest week for Impact of this iteration of ownership.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Let's move over to Raw from Monday night. They did 1,737,000 viewers going against the San Francisco Buffalo Bills game that was on both ABC and ESPN. They also did 254,900 viewers on Sportsnet 360 in Canada. And what was interesting about Monday's numbers are that the female audience just tanked this week, while the male audience made up a lot of that, but didn't completely cover for the losses among women. With females 18 to 49, they were not only down 22% this week, but over the course of the show from the first to third hour, dropped over 20%. Women 12 to 34 were down 24% from last week, and throughout the show, dropped 28%. So those are big declines, both week over week and throughout the show with women. However, in the male 18 to 49 audience, up 12% this week, while men 12 to 34 were up 24%. So interesting that this show had like very diametrically opposed trends for their male and female audience. But overall, it kind of was even. Like viewership was almost identical to last week. The demo number was a 0.51, only down 4%. They were still fourth on cable. So all in all, it was kind of on par with the week prior. But when you look at some of the demos, it does tell an interesting story.
Right. Yeah.
I guess this is clear that women did not care about seeing the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and Randy Orton.
Well, as a male, I can't tell you what would have attracted men to it.
Yeah, I did not want to. I did not agree with my gender about that increase this week.
Yeah, I don't really, as usual, I have no idea really what to make of these sort of trends or numbers. Like.
Way I wanted the definitive conclusion of what Monday's numbers meant to the world.
I don't fucking know.
Like, the world's narrative.
I just know I watched the whole show. I thought it was pretty shitty. So I don't know how the numbers correlate to it.
A few interesting interviews from the past couple of days. Today, Wednesday, Bill Goldberg was on WWE show The Bump. And the notable thing was that the guy was clearly angling for a match with Roman Reigns. Obviously that was the plan for WrestleMania this past year. As we're looking a few months out and you're looking at the available options for Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, where would a Goldberg match rank among interesting options for Reigns, who will obviously be in a prominent match come Mania?
For me personally, very low. I think we are really Goldberg was at WrestleMania this year, dude. And already, I think, even this past appearance, people weren't necessarily clamoring for him to be there. I think you are seeing more than enough backlash against him for taking up a spot that otherwise would be going to a full timer. And we're talking about a roster this year. Like, it's not like they don't have other options. I think they do have other options, especially when it comes to this Roman Reigns and how fresh he is. You compare him with a Daniel Bryan. That, to me, could be a WrestleMania level event. Of course, the rematch against Drew McIntyre. That in itself is enough to, be more of an interesting match on paper than a Bill Goldberg match. Probably be a way better match in execution as well. Big E is another name. So it's not like they don't have options this year. And they have, in fact, so many options that I think back to Goldberg and Reigns would turn a lot of people off.
Do you think that that's a match that at some point, forget WrestleMania, that they will? We do know Goldberg, he did release the details. His contract calls for 2 matches per year. And given, what the guy's making, they're going to be big matches. I do think it's a match they'll get to at some point. I don't dismiss it for WrestleMania, but I do think it's one that they will pull the trigger on at some point next year.
I agree.
Just because it was in the plans.
Yes, I agree. The fact that you do have a fresher Roman Reigns character right now going up against a babyface Bill Goldberg. I don't think it's a bad match to make at all. I think the optics of putting another Bill Goldberg match in a title program, if Roman is still champion at that point at WrestleMania, is just a really bad sign, especially if you're trying to be a company that, is. I hope that they're trying to shake the perhaps, I don't know, reputation that they're a company of old retreads every single WrestleMania cycle. Like, save Goldberg for Backlash, save Goldberg for, your B-level shows if you want to get some added interest to those, but leave WrestleMania for your new stars, because you're actually at the point right now where there's enough interest in your new stars.
CM Punk was also on Renee Paquette's podcast, and
Oral Sessions.
Oral Sessions, yes, which was a name that CM Punk openly mocked to Renee. A questionable name for the podcast, but nonetheless, she's running with it, so good for her. So it came up about the idea of Punk ever coming back, and he stated that it would take a great idea and a lot of money for him to do another match. My question is, where right now is, for either side, like WWE, I just see there being so many hurdles to imagine that could possibly happen. I don't know if either side ultimately wants to make that happen. I guess on the AEW side, I would say things have kind of simmered down on CM Punk, but I also look that this company is getting very aggressive about doing things that are going to wow their audience, and Punk is always going to fall into that column.
Absolutely. I think the market's wide open for him from either company. I certainly think WWE, we've seen in the past, any sort of bad blood, Vince is able to forget if there's money to be made. And I think there's still definitely interest in CM Punk. How
much faith do you have in Punk? Let's say WWE could, they obviously could make the offer that would qualify for the money offer. A lot would have to be done to kind of, get the sides on the table. But Punk, he said if the right thing came up, he'd do it. But, granted, for a generation, the biggest idea was, the biggest get was trying to get Bret Hart back. And after all that time, the angle that they had for him, and I'll say a giant squandering, has been Bryan Danielson's comeback. He's in a fine position, but when you go back to that announcement that he was returning, I thought this guy was going to be just the biggest star in the world. How much faith do you have that Punk could be a real significant player in WWE versus, trepidation that he would come back and either just be a guy or would not be utilized to the most effective role?
If we're talking main roster with the same people in charge, I think it'll be like all those other ones. He'll be hot for the first couple weeks. He'll be hot for probably that pay-per-view, and then he'll just be another person there. Their track record tells me that there's no way.
I do think the program to make, though, is 100% right now Reigns and Punk, with the history of, I wanted to call the Shield up and not have you, plus you've got the Heyman factor in there, and this is the guy that pretty much took over when Punk left. I think that would be the program right now.
That would be cool. Yeah. Trying to think who else. If we're gonna what fantasy book CM Punk with current main roster WWE.
I don't have a long list on the WWE side, of the big match to make. Who are you looking at? Hunter?
Oh God, I want to see something fresh.
Punk and Danielson, that. I don't think that would be exciting for Punk to come back for. Honestly, I think Reigns is the program.
I think the Bray Wyatt match, would be interesting. CM Punk, now himself a horror movie actor, might have some interesting things to do with the CM with a Fiend. If we're talking a Fiend who can psychoanalyze so much of the history that Punk has gone through over the past 7 years of his absence. if we're talking about the Fiend at his best, that paired with the CM Punk with a real life Phil Brooks, I think would be really interesting. Of course, like, people like Seth Rollins. I can't
co-sign on that one.
Sure, maybe not. But, people like Seth Rollins, we haven't really seen that match. Drew McIntyre, like, you can kind of name them. Anyway, I'd be far more like optimistic if we were talking about CM Punk perhaps making an appearance in NXT. For the amount of money that he's probably asking for, I can't really see that happening. But maybe they at some point feel like NXT needs to take that next step up and really needs that shot in its arm. Like, he would be, to me, a great fit for that. But yeah, I get the sense from CM Punk that, yeah, maybe he's not completely like begging to come back, but he's not saying no either. I think he's still very much like testing the waters. Even doing an interview like this, he'll probably just say, yeah, just doing it a favor for a friend. But I don't think he's dumb. Like, I think he still wants these offers to come in and, see what his options are.
He was also very dismissive at the idea of any kind of union of the talent getting together. I mean, that was a very quick and easy answer that he had, which I can't say I disagree with his thought process there. Like, I would be stunned if that could happen. And here we are, just several weeks removed, Wai. It's not like this is a giant topic of conversation.
Nope, not at all. Yeah, the world moves on, right?
The last story we have here is an MMA story, and that was reported by Ariel Helwani that Anthony Johnson, who has been retired for almost 4 years at this point, he has departed the UFC and has now signed with Bellator and will be joining their light heavyweight division, which that in and of itself is amazing, because if you have seen Anthony Johnson over the last couple of years, this is a man that has gotten very, very large. So to see him get down to light heavyweight is going to be quite the feat.
I thought he retired.
Yes, many fighters do retire. My question to you, Wai, is that are you aware that you covered his last fight in Buffalo in April of 2017?
Was that the retirement fight?
Yes, that was his last fight. That's where he announced he got submitted by Daniel Cormier, and then he announced his retirement in the octagon immediately afterwards. And I remember, like, we were in the back and there were like people around us that like just were not expecting this to happen. So it seemed like Johnson kind of just threw this out there and said he had some other business going on, and that was it. And this was not like a short-term thing. He has definitely flirted with returning over the last while, but now he has a concrete deal, and it's a signing by Bellator, which they have, there have been some names that have come up that they have not pursued, but Anthony Johnson will be joining their light heavyweight division.
What was that business he ended up?
He got involved in like a marijuana dispensary.
Oh.
But he was being so vague about it and cryptic, but he wouldn't let the cat out of the bag what he was going to be doing. So everyone was just speculating, like, what's this guy doing? And that's what it ended up being.
Well, that's, I suppose a retirement of 3 years? I mean, that seems like an eternity compared to most. So sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, after all these retirements this year, I mean, John Jones, Conor McGregor, it's nice to see some fighter coming back now.
Yeah.
We'll save that for the end of the year, like the careers that have ended, the MMA careers that have ended. All right, all of your news you can find at postwrestling.com. We go on over to Wednesday's edition of Dynamite, taped last week at Daly's Place. And Jim Ross starts the show calling last week the most successful Dynamite ever, putting it over very strong. And we go right to the ring for the non-title match involving the Young Bucks against Jack Evans and Angelico, which the last time the Bucks were putting an opener with Top Flight, it did a tremendous number. So going to the well again with this, they had the Bucks interviewed by Dasha, who are going to deliver a super kick party. And then when asked about Kenny Omega, they have had no contact with him all week, but he is their best friend.
Interesting, their whole angle about all this. I mean, the Kenny obviously healed now, but the Bucks clearly aren't at the moment. So it teases some further development there.
TH2, Jack Evans and Angelico attacked them before the bell, and then we just got right into it. Nick dove over Matt to the floor. Evans then kicked off the back of Matt as Angelico was holding him up and backflipped to the floor. That was very impressive. Just a ton of insanity here. There was Matt powerbombed Jack Evans onto the Acclaimed, who were ringside behind the guardrail. And then Evans followed with a springboard 450 onto Matt as TH2 has the advantage. We have Nick scale to the top, and they hit a doomsday device to Jack Evans on the ramp. There's a double super kick onto Angelico for a 2 count. More bang for your buck gets interrupted when Angelico gets the knees up. Jack Evans fires back with a poison rana, and then Angelico applies the Navarro death roll onto Matt, who's got the injured knee. Evans misses and lands on the floor, so Nick climbs up and hits a swanton to break up the submission. I believe this was the spot that Jericho actually referred to on his podcast today, that he pulled Nick aside to give him some advice on, why are you doing a swanton to break this up? Just run in there and break the submission up. You don't always have to be doing something like this. I assume this was the spot.
That would make sense. At the same time, it's has he ever seen a Young Bucks match?
Well, I mean, that's the argument too. It's sometimes the stuff can work, and it depends on, the timing and the situation.
Why would you do a somersault flip into the dude with a tombstone pile driver when you could just, I guess, jump and or let the guy hit up a tombstone pile driver? I don't know. It's just I when I watch a Bucks match, I just kind of throw those logic things out the window.
Well, if I ever had a really bad knee and someone applied a Navarro death roll on me on Young Street, I just want you to come and nail the guy. You wouldn't have to climb onto your car and then signal to the onlookers and then do a 450 onto the guy.
Noted. Thank you.
So Evans goes for a Sasuke special, and in landing it, he's caught by Matt in the tombstone position for an indie taker on the floor. They get into the ring, they double super kick Angelico and finish him with the BTE trigger. 11 minutes and 48 seconds of non-stop action. I thought this tag match ruled. I thought it was so fun.
Having done your job for 3 weeks, John, I realize how much work it is, how much more work it is to take notes for the play-by-play. So I never envy you. I especially don't envy you for a match like this.
This one was nuts.
It was so hard to just even keep up with my own notes. I can't imagine trying to note these little things here and there. What a match. It's a match to me that reminds the world why the Bucks are so deserving of all their successes. You could cite the Bullet Club, you can BTE, Hot Topic. All these things would be meaningless if they weren't incredible performers in the ring. Every time they wrestle, and it's not as often anymore, but still, every time we see them, it's spectacular.
I think that's good. I would not want these guys weekly. It's special still when the Bucks wrestle, I feel. And typically, their matches, the ratings reflect that. It's a big deal when the Bucks wrestle.
Totally. Best TH2 match I've seen on Dynamite, at least. It was a match that completely highlighted their skills and their chemistry with the Bucks as well. Matt also continued to remind us about that ankle injury, and of course also teasing a future match with the Acclaimed here.
Yeah, this was easily over 4 stars. No issue at all. I thought this was just a fantastic tag match for the 12 minutes.
Best match on the show, in my opinion.
Oh, easily. Yeah, easily. So the Acclaimed are pissed off afterwards. They jump the rail, and you think they're going to be going for the Young Bucks, but they're thwarted by Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian. So the long-term destination will be getting to the Bucks and the Acclaimed, but the immediate future, it's going to be Daniels and Kazarian against the Acclaimed next week, which is a match I like a lot. It'll give Max Caster and Anthony Bowens your 8 to 10 minute match, and I expect they go over on your veteran tag team. So I like that match for next week.
I like it too. It's a good kind of first step for the Acclaimed on their path to the Bucks. They must have a lot of faith in the Acclaimed to give them a several weeks build to what you might assume to be at least a non-title match, or at least their way to a title match. It's a big spot for the Acclaimed. I definitely question why they're being promoted as heels when I think the act is such a babyface act, and they're both really entertaining in a babyface type of way. But then you also look at this roster, and if you do want to eventually get to that match with the Bucks, I mean, they kind of by default have to play those heels, don't they?
MJF was with Wardlow. He said that Orange Cassidy makes a mockery of this industry, and tonight he's going to upset the not-so-smart marks, and he's going to hurt Orange Cassidy. We got a very avant-garde video with Darby Allin, shot in black and white, as this counselor was showing him images of the different Team Taz members, asking Darby what he sees in these images, referring to...
Rorschach photos.
Yes, referring to Will Hobbs as the snake in the grass and Brian Cage as a puppet. He says, Starks is the man that tried to end his career. I've dealt with shit like that for 27 years. And then the last picture is one of Sting, and Darby just laughs. So, and that was the backdrop here of teasing something with Sting and Darby Allin in this and in the following segment.
You know, these segments to me, they're almost always cool looking, but they often leave you asking like, why? Like he's doing something crazy, like he's falling from like a forklift into a, I don't know, pond, or like just getting himself into like a, I don't know, wheelbarrow and rolling himself down a
jumping off a bridge,
so stuff like that. But this was cool looking, and it was pretty comprehensible. You know, it made total sense. Like it's just a scene of him, and all he can think about is Team Taz. I mean, the last photo, really, I thought, it's hard to think about anything else but Sting too. But this was done tastefully. It was effective in laying out his storylines. I thought this was really good. Like it's so different from your typical pro wrestling backstage skit.
Tony Schiavone's in the ring, and they bring out Cody and Arn Anderson, and Cody is asked his thoughts about Sting arriving, but before he can answer, the lights go out and Sting makes his grand entrance. Arn has to go up close to make sure he's real, and he understands that both men have an agenda, and he's just going to depart. So he leaves. Tony goes to leave, but Sting says, "Hey, Tony," and he gives him just the biggest hug. And he thanks Tony for all he's done in his career and wants him to give another, "It's Sting!" And Tony did not let anyone down, and this was awesome.
I love this. Like, this had really nothing to do with any sort of storyline whatsoever. And in fact, these were Sting's first words in AEW. So, you know, Sting's first words in AEW were nothing about storylines. It was nothing about like being this kind of dark, mysterious character. It was asking Tony Schiavone for a hug, which is just so awesome. It was a wonderful bit of nostalgia and told the audience that this company has a great reverence for WCW history. You know, cult connections like this have largely, I think, been kind of forgotten in the mainstream with WWE's dominance. Like, none of this would ever occur, of course, if it was like a WWE thing. Sting's history might as well have began in like 1997, if you're talking about, you know, WWE's version of Sting. But something small like this means a lot to the lapsed WCW fan. You know, it was a type of fan service for the type of fan that's really been ignored for 20 years.
I could have been reminded, though, that Sting was a big fish in a small pond a few times.
Oh, God. Like, 2 weeks in, and it's already like night and day, the treatment.
Cody thanks Sting for the assist last week. He's waited to share a ring with him for a very long time. And Sting tells Cody, "I'm not here for you, at least not now." And says that there's something really familiar about this place. And he looks up into the rafters, and there, seated by himself, is Darby Allin. He says, "The animals here are the same, and this is the jungle." And I was getting ready for Guns N' Roses to take Sting out. And he says, "The only thing for sure about Sting is nothing is for sure. I'm signed to AEW. I plan to be around here for a long time." And says that what I do, Cody, is my business, and I'll see you around, kid. And that was it. He just walked out. And not a whole lot of, substance in terms of what is next for him. But what did you think about this in terms of delivering on the first promo from Sting?
Well, I know what you mean in that, like, you don't really get a sense of... Well, I mean, he did say that, like, he has his sights set on Darby Allin.
You had teases of stuff.
He didn't,
but not like a big angle that's taking you in an immediate direction.
Yeah, he didn't challenge somebody for a match at like that New Year's show or anything like that. But I think as a first appearance, it gave you enough, but not too much. And I thought it gave you plenty. You heard Sting speak, you heard what his character essentially is going to sound like. It's not just some quiet, mysterious, non-speaking character. He just played basically the Sting that I think everybody has always loved, just full of confidence, full of fun, and to be able to experience Sting's arrival through Cody's lens in the ring. Like Cody, who at this point has kind of really built himself up to be this leader of the brand, incredibly confident. Seeing Sting arrive with Cody in the ring from his perspective, it made you feel like a little kid, the way Cody looked up to Sting as a little kid, and made Sting look like all of our childhood heroes, whether or not we grew up with Sting. So I thought it was a wonderful little segment that just, drew some great connections here.
Team Taz, including newest member Hook, are in the back, and Taz said that Tony Khan's Golden Boys were saved by Sting last week. Hook is now training with us at the dojo, and we're always ready to beat someone's ass.
Yes, so Hook is now has left the Nightmare family, I suppose.
Yes,
and Cage just had to get his line in there too.
Who better? Yeah,
he can't be the quiet guy anymore.
No. So just a very brief segment here. So.
All these talking segments are very brief. I mean, they clearly, it's kind of been talked about, but they want to get to in-ring action as fast as possible on these shows.
The next match was FTR against the Varsity Blondes, Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison, who they noted have won 3 of their last 4 matches on AEW Dark. Jim Ross summarized Brian Sr., who was a great athlete, but he was crazy. They double-team Pillman after he missed a reverse cross off the turnbuckle and was hit with a powerbomb. Tully slaps him on the floor, but then comes back with a springboard shoulder tackle to Wheeler, makes the tag to Garrison, who I think has a lot of potential as a babyface, especially in a tag scenario. He hit a series of splashes in the corner, hit a double spear, and then Harwood sidestepped a springboard from Pillman to hit the Brainbuster, followed by the Goodnight Express onto Pillman, and FTR gained the victory. But I thought even in short fashion here, I liked this as a showcase for the Varsity Blondes too as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a showcase earlier on for the Bucks, and here, a showcase for both Varsity Blondes and also FTR. It was a match in style that was almost like the polar opposite of that Bucks TH2 match, but I thought good in its own way. I like the Varsity Blondes a lot. I don't know if it was just having seen Sting in the prior segment, but this team looks like it's a team directly lifted from WCW Saturday Night in 1993, just down to the hair and just even the way that they work. Griff Garrison, you could tell me that he was Van Hammer Jr. teaming with Brian Pillman Jr. I'd believe you.
Well, right down to the homage. I mean, this is right out of WCW 93.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, I look forward to when, Brian Pillman can actually be a full-time wrestler on AEW, because this is definitely the commentary team and, the right environment that would give enough background on his, family's history. And already in this little brief glimpse, he was made to feel pretty special.
Then FTR got into the face of Jurassic Express, so that looks to be our next tag match for FTR at some point with whatever iteration of the team we get. Alex Marvez caught up with Hangman Page, who was having a drink. He's got a 6-man tag next week against Matt Hardy and Private Party, but he's got no partners. So Alex Reynolds and John Silver appear wearing cowboy hats that they borrowed from Kurt Angle, and Page turns them down as partners. And Reynolds and Silver counter by asking, well, who else are you going to get? Page acknowledges, that's a great point. So you can be my partners. And that is the 6-man tag next week, which I would imagine is going to be the dissolution of Hardy and Private Party.
Has to be by this point. I mean, he's already so heelish. He
eliminated Isaiah Cassidy last week. So I think this would be the point where you have this should really just be a backdrop for this Matt Hardy character to break away from Private Party.
And a bit of, more ramping up of Page with the Dark Order too, who I mean, it's a story that I think has largely been taking place on BTE. And yeah, I imagine in the next few weeks you'll see more of it on more of the storytelling on TV.
Then we had 10 taking on Dustin Rhodes, and Lee Johnson is in Dustin's corner. 10 got a spine buster in, but then a flying knee sends him off the apron, and Aaron Solo reaches over to grab 10, and he gets knocked down on his ass. I think completely justifiably.
You can't do that. Why did he do that?
This was you're a fan, so 10 had every right here to just knock this guy into next week.
I don't know,
which he literally did. He knocked him last Thursday into this week.
Sure, you're right. I don't know what this was really for. I don't get the sense that we're going to see Aaron Solo and 10 engage in a long-term feud on Dynamite. I mean, this was probably just another thing for Dark, right? Or BTE.
Most likely Dark. Rhodes attacked and hit the running bulldog, and he won in 2:49. This led to Dark Order coming out, and Evil Uno says we can't change the past, but we can improve the future. He invites Dustin to join the group, but notes right now you're only the third most important Rhodes in the company, and you can come and be 7.
As soon as I
laughed. That was so great.
As soon as he said 7, I just like this was the most WCW edition of Dynamite I've ever seen. Between Sting and like a callback to 7, like
it's one thing to call back to WCW in the early 90s, but when you're picking stuff out from Vince Russo WCW, like you're really going for someone that can remember this stuff, which for those that maybe do not remember, this was the character Dustin Rhodes debuted, which was like this crazy look that he had. And I kind of liked the character, but before it had this cool entrance into the ring, and I thought it was like, okay, this is kind of neat. And then by the end of the promo, he rips off the mask and he says, I'm not doing any of this bullshit, and I'm Dustin Rhodes. It's like, oh, okay, well, that was a lot of effort to just piss on this new idea.
I think 7 would be such a great fit in the Dark Order. I mean, obviously the number thing, but I think the look totally works for the Dark Order. So I think we could finally tell the backstory of 7. But I mean, wouldn't WWE own it?
I don't know if that's one that maybe would slip through the cracks.
I think the copyright for 7 is up for grabs.
They'd be like, take it. More harm than good. He teases accepting, but he just slaps the shit out of Evil Uno. And Uno says, when you see the light, you'll be begging to join us. Then we had the big sit down. Tony Schiavone with Brandi Rhodes and SHAQ.
Yes. DJ Diesel himself.
DJ Diesel himself. Where you at? I'm on Dynamite. I hate to brag, but this is my network. So let me in. Let me in. It's going to be game over. And if any of you want to do a match, I'll be gigging on them. Are you a roughneck way?
Was that a SHAQ song?
Dude, those were the key hits.
I had no idea. I didn't know.
Well, I tried way.
What was the name of that song?
Dude, what was the name? These are all hits from him. Shoot, pass, slam.
Oh, I know that one.
I know I got skills with a Z. Where you at? What's up, Doc? That's from
Space Jam, right?
Yeah. So there you go.
Was it from Space Jam? I don't know.
I don't know. I've never seen Space Jam.
What?
Never saw it. Never saw that. Never saw Indiana Jones. Kill me. SHAQ Diesel, SHAQ Food, The Return, You Can't Stop the Rain, and Respect was his latest album.
Oh, the man has had an incredible life. Yeah.
Dude, do you know how many copies SHAQ Diesel sold in 93?
Platinum?
It was platinum. Million albums sold.
It doesn't surprise me. No.
Less so for Respect in 98. A paltry 104,000.
Twism, man. Twism.
Oh, then we've got compilations. Did the soundtrack for both Kazam and Steel.
Of course. Classics.
Well, SHAQ is a big fan of Jade Cargill, and he doesn't appreciate, though, what Jade did to Brandi's arm as she's sitting there in a sling, and says that SHAQ wants to see them have a match on Dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. SHAQ then says what he said about Cody on Twitter. That was me just joking around. I respect Cody. I respect his father. And as Brandi gets up to leave, SHAQ says, you could get some pointers from Jade. And Brandi says, are you being serious right now? And she gets a glass of water and just tells SHAQ, I'm sick of this shit, and spills water on SHAQ and calls him an asshole. This was the last idea I had for SHAQ and his involvement on this show. And by the end of it, I think we're getting a mixed tag.
Okay. I
think that's the big match.
I guess I could see that. Man, even that I think will be really risky.
Especially when one side is SHAQ and Jade Cargill.
Sure. That definitely would make sense.
Cody will be quarterbacking that one.
Yeah. I guess I'm not even completely sold that SHAQ will actually be in ring, but
maybe not. I can't say like this angle was driving a whole lot of interest in that direction. I thought this was a big letdown. If you had any expectation of SHAQ doing something big on the show, which this was, I think after the tease of Jade Cargill's promo with Cody, people were at least interested to see how SHAQ would be utilized on this show, but I can't say that this had the wrestling world reacting in any high volume.
My assumption is that they had commitment from SHAQ way back, when Jade Cargill cut that promo, but probably weren't able to get a proper date for him to come in to actually shoot an angle. And maybe at some point in the span of the last week, they're like, he's free. Okay, let's rush to the studio right now and shoot this so we can insert it into last week, the tape show that we shot. It did not feel perhaps as, well put together as maybe, or well thought out as maybe some of your other AEW angles. For one thing, I didn't really understand what SHAQ was saying here. Okay, SHAQ said he didn't appreciate what Jade did to Brandi's arm, and yet he wants Brandi to take pointers from Jade for how to break people's arms.
I didn't know what this was about. He's a fan of Jade.
Didn't like what she did to Brandi.
Brandi is, if we can recap the amount of time she has been a babyface and a heel, my head would spin.
Well, that's another issue. But even Brandi's like water throw at SHAQ, I didn't necessarily feel like it came at a point of escalation in the conversation that warranted it. Like take some point. Anyway, why are we even dissecting like something so casual? But it's the point is
this should be like a major part of the show if SHAQ is involved in any way with something moving forward.
I guess in the end, it's like, the thing that people are going to remember, the thing they're going to replay is water being thrown onto SHAQ by Brandi. I bet you right now, if you searched on, your GIF search platforms, it's probably already a GIF. Just getting SHAQ on TV, I think, is the biggest thing here.
Well, the Inner Circle came out, and Jericho said that there's a lot of shit that's been going on. Did you know they can swear on TNT?
Yeah. Did you know that they could swear on podcasts too? Have you heard Oral Sessions by Renee Young? Man, every sentence from this woman, now that she's out of the WWE system, every sentence is like contains a fuck or a shit or something.
You know how much more entertaining the kickoff shows would have been without a filter?
Yeah, sure. Truly, it would be unfiltered with Renee Young.
JBL, we got a fucking cage match tonight. This sucks.
Yes.
So Jericho said it was embarrassing last week. There was pushing and shoving. We're not on the same page. Santana is so pissed. He's not even here this week. So MJF takes the microphone. He says, I love all of you. I think I might be the issue. People online think I want to break this group up or take it over. I chose to join this group to be part of the greatest faction in all of wrestling. And he tells Sammy Guevara he loves him and he's told to shut up. Jericho points out, we all watch Dynamite, so we saw what you were trying to do with the towel. MJF says, no, I was just trying to get rid of the sweat on my brow. Ortiz takes over. He calls MJF and Wardlow assets, but as human beings, that's debatable. He says he likes Wardlow. No changes to Wardlow. MJF, you're growing on me. Like a fungus, but you are growing on me. And he asks Sammy to shake MJF's hand. He said, we don't choose the hand we're dealt. This was Chris's decision, not ours. Sammy, you need to be the better man. And he tells him, you're better than him, and you know it. Sammy trusts Chris. He will shake his hand, but he warns Chris, if one more thing happens, I will quit. And he shakes MJF's hand. We think it's all peaceful, but then Jake Hager has a question. Why is this guy still staring at me? Looking at Wardlow. Wardlow says, you've been staring at me. And Jericho plays peacemaker and agrees, no more staring at one another. MJF points out that he's facing the guy that beat Jericho twice. Just a nice little subtle dig. There should always be these little jabs from MJF about his superiority. And they all get together and they join in a group middle finger.
Yeah, their version of the fist. I really like this. I mean, the continued push-pull of, the are they together, aren't they together within the inner circle continues. We've seen like Jericho do this with, somebody like a Kevin Owens on a singles basis. Now he's extending that same sort of story and philosophy to a number of different personalities within the group. And I think it's that much more entertaining because I think they've done a really good job of like crafting individual personalities and individual motivations for every single member of the group, down to like Jake Hager and Wardlow, just even in the end here having their little moment, I thought was really adorable.
Alex Marvez was with FTR and Tully Blanchard. Cash Wheeler takes the responsibility for the loss to the Young Bucks. Tully says, I wasn't there. It's not just your fault. We're invincible when we're together. They make fun of a bunch of people jumping off top ropes in battle royals, which was kind of a funny unifying line. And they compare themselves to an 82 Ford Bronco with Mario Andretti driving.
That's bad, right?
Well, Mario Andretti was a world-class driver.
Didn't he die in a crash?
Mario Andretti did not die in a... You're thinking of Dale Earnhardt or maybe several other drivers.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. He's still very much alive.
Mario's alive. Michael Andretti was his son. I remember Michael Andretti more than Mario Andretti because there actually was a time that I did follow race car. Kart. Yes, that was it.
Indeed.
Jacques Villeneuve.
Oh, yeah.
My gateway,
huge.
man. That guy was like the biggest thing in Canadian history.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember that.
Remember Greg Moore, who died? Halloween 1999, I think.
Don't remember that one. No.
Let me see if I'm right on that date. Halloween 1999. That was incredible. I can't believe I remember that.
Did you even need to check? Come on.
No, I did check.
So what else did he say? The 82 Bronco?
82 Ford Bronco.
82 Bronco. Is that a really good car or something?
I wasn't born, so I wasn't driving it. I would assume so. I think that was the analogy they were making. Great car, great driver, when they're all on the same page together.
I see. Okay. Sorry, I'm the wrong audience for that reference.
Oh, were you starting to go down the rabbit hole of Canadian drivers?
No.
Oh. Okay. 6-man tag. Eddie Kingston, The Butcher, and The Blade took on Lance Archer, Ray Phoenix, and Penta. So Archer just dives off the stage into the ring, and we have a brawl with all 6 involved. They got the heat on Phoenix, including the Bunny getting involved, choking from the floor, and then he hit a handspring cutter on Kingston, tags in Archer. We go through the break. Jake Roberts grabs Blade by the leg, allowing Archer to hit the German suplex. Jake just seems like he's in his own world. Like he's coming out. It's like, here's like the wild uncle of Lance Archer, who's just... I don't know what Jake's gimmick is. It's just like this guy is the wild, crazy uncle. It's the best description I can give.
Yeah, I mean, I guess perfectly cast if that's what you're going for.
Phoenix hit this huge somersault dive through the ropes onto Kingston, but sends him into the rail. Then Phoenix misses coming off the top, allowing Butcher and Blade to lift him up for full death. And Phoenix didn't just die, he fully died and was pinned.
You know, I'll be honest, I kind of hit a wall at this point in the show, so it was hard for me to...
So did Eddie Kingston.
Yes. My wall, though, was maybe more detrimental for me focusing on this match, so I can't really comment that much on the in-ring. I guess, remember, you know, I'm still a little bit startled by the fact that Lance Archer all of a sudden is just a babyface, you know? And I guess by default, like, you're going up against Eddie Kingston, he... is not necessarily a good guy, but we're supposed to cheer for him. I don't know.
It was an all right 6-man. Like you got to showcase Phoenix, who's at least in a babyface role now, so that's a positive. Yeah, you just have a lot of like odd pieces, I think, that are all thrown into this right now. With that, like you have this overall breakup of the family, but not like you've really dialed in on this story and where it's going.
I really feel like going to Eddie Kingston and Lance Archer right now is kind of bad timing, in my opinion, because you're still trying to establish the reunion of the Death Triangle. You know, the whole feud right now should be Eddie Kingston and Butcher and the Blade versus PAC and the Lucha Brothers. There's still so much material to be there, to be told there, and having all of a sudden Lance Archer be injected into this whole thing, bringing up like that Battle Royal deal from weeks ago that nobody remembers, I think just kind of muddies everything up.
Maybe they're going to need backup, and we're going to see PAC and SHAQ.
PAC and SHAQ. PAC and SHAQ. Huh.
Archer just kills everyone after the match. He blasts the Blade, suplexes him, and then the blackout gets stopped when the Butcher makes the save, and they just cut to Jake, who was all out of breath, just taking this all in. Backstage, Nyla Rose and Jade Cargill are beating the hell out of Red Velvet, so Serena Deeb and Big Swole make the save, and that prompts Ivelisse and Diamante to get involved, messing around with Deeb and Swole, and we will get to that follow-up for next week later on. But first, Abaddon took on Tesha Price. Abaddon has won 5 straight matches. She also had the red and green eyes fitting for the season.
Oh, Christmas look.
Yeah. So Abaddon in the festive spirit.
You think they celebrate Christmas wherever Abaddon's from?
Why wouldn't you?
I mean, it's a holiday and celebration of the birth of Christ.
Well, there's always, different forms of celebration that you can partake in. Price gets swarmed. She's hit with an STO, and Abaddon finishes her off with the Widow's Peak and wins in 1:12 and continues to attack, ramming Price's head into the mat until Hikaru Shida came out with a kendo stick, nailing her with it, helps Price to her feet, and Abaddon raises up and stares down Hikaru Shida.
Yeah, she does the take her sit up as Shida runs away. Really good intensity from Abaddon. I'm still really, I guess I haven't really seen too many of her full matches, so I can't really tell you how much of her act, is complete yet. But certainly her entrance and her mannerisms are completely there. Like, they're excellent. So it's a pretty.
I think she's a really cool character, and I already like the automatic comparison is going to be of Abaddon's presentation versus the Fiend, and for whatever reason, I think this is a. Granted, much shorter one. It's not like it's the main story on the show, but I enjoyed this a lot more than I did Randy Orton and Bray on Monday.
The Fiend for his entire, run has really battled, I think, overproduction, down to like the stupid red light, like just all the Firefly Funhouse segments that don't make a lick of sense. This is just like a crazy character in a very real sports-like environment. And all you really need is just like it's like kind of old school Undertaker, It's just the performer is all you really need to sell you on the gimmick. So it's a really easy to understand story where Hikaru Shida is having to face her fears to face the demon, but it's ultimately to me a big test for Shida and how good her acting is. That to me is sort of the biggest challenge.
A helicopter lands outside holding Kenny Omega and Don Callis. They blow past Alex Marvez to come out to the ring. It's the big elaborate entrance with Justin Roberts introducing Kenny. And
this was the Lex Luger thing he was teasing. Because Luger arrived on the USS Intrepid via helicopter.
Oh, and they landed in the helicopter, yes. Because when you say transportation vehicles for Lex Luger, you think the bus, which the bus was on Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, Luger's a...
No, it's right. Like, it was the USS Intrepid on
He's really got everything, right? He's got the bus, he's got the chopper, he's got the boat.
Yeah. So look at that. A man of many forms of transportation. So Don starts the promo, and first off, Shivani says he has never been so disgusted since he entered this business in 1983, and I went through 2000 in WCW. Don doesn't understand why everyone, including Tony Khan, are so upset. And he says, welcome to the wrestling business, kid. And he says, people are calling this the Montreal screw job. Well, I was in Montreal, and the stakes were much bigger, for winter is coming. And midway through this promo, it took me back to late 2005. And do you know who the big comedian was in 2005?
Big comedian. Let me think about this. Was it
super popular?
Anthony?
You almost said
Jeselnik?
No, 2005.
Dave Chappelle?
It was Dane Cook. This was the height of Dane Cook. And what I remember most is I bought this guy's album, okay, on a CD. And I remember listening to it with my friends. And then they announced Dane Cook is going to be on Saturday Night Live. And I remember, man, this is going to be great. And then I tuned into Saturday Night Live, and what I heard was like the greatest hits from the album. Oh. And this promo, like, this was just pretty much lifted from Tuesday's promo.
Very, like, almost verbatim. Yeah.
Like, it
was not good.
These are not like people that are not thinking about this. So it was done for some purpose. I just don't know what purpose it was. Am I thinking too deeply into this?
You're not thinking too deeply. I mean, it was not.
Do you feel like we had a great promo and we think no one's going to see this on Impact, so we're going to redo it the next night? Like, it just seemed very strange. It was like to the very lines, mainly from Callis, but it was like directly lifted from 24 hours earlier.
I actually thought it was a worse version, like a pre-rehearsal version of what we got on Tuesday.
Well, this one would have been cut first.
Yeah.
Last week. And then, he honed it down because, it was the better promo was Tuesday in the truck.
Are you going to go through the promo? Or should we just like dissect it? Because it was essentially...
Well, it was just, Callis pretty much, if you saw the Impact promo, this was it. Omega said he never begged Tony Khan to help his friends and family like others did. He plotted this for over a year, put over the title. It was a performance last week, comparing it to fine art. And it was a big plot. Moxley fell for it, which was the most important thing. And he busted up his eye, which he pointed out Tuesday. And no one kicks out of the one-winged angel, which I think ultimately someone will. And then right down to, can you do the thing? And he did the good night and goodbye. It was just a very perplexing promo, which I just don't know what the thinking was that went into this, because they did it on purpose. So what was the purpose?
I think on some level, like, redoing some of your shtick between the two shows is perfectly fine, because there's going to be plenty of people, the majority probably, who wouldn't have seen the Tuesday promo. I think, though, knowing that AEW does so much for his hardcore audience, that, I mean, the whole angle is built upon the idea that people are well aware of Impact's existence and so much other history, like AEW books many of their angles for people that watch everything. They know their New Japan history. They know their WCW, Jim Crockett Promotions history. They know wrestling. They book wrestling for the wrestling fans. So I was disappointed that we at least didn't get another different wrinkle here. Knowing that so much of their audience probably at least got wind of the Tuesday appearance. This did not build on it. This was not any different. And again, it was worse than the Tuesday one, because what I liked about Tuesday was that Omega, he had justification for attacking Moxley when he said, what would you do if somebody laid a hand on your uncle or your dad? I forget what he said. Like, he was justifying turning heel. In his mind, the gentleman's agreement was out the window the moment you laid a hand on Don Callis. Kenny didn't even have that justification here. He basically played it a lot more straightforward heel without that sort of like very interesting, maybe logic attached to his heel action. So a little bit disappointing in that sense.
Next week on the show, we've got Cody Rhodes against Angelico, Matt Hardy and Private Party against Hangman, John Silver and Alex Reynolds, Kazarian and Daniels against The Acclaimed, and Serena Deeb and Big Swole against Ivelisse and Diamante. And next week is a live show, and I'm sure over the next week they can announce more, but not a really stacked lineup for next week.
Maybe not compared to these couple weeks with all these major things, so... they have some days to go. I think everybody's still very curious about Kenny's next move with Don Callis, and maybe they'll announce something during the week.
They also laid out the following 3 weeks, the themes of the show. So we've got next week's lineup. December 23rd, there's going to be an NBA game on TNT. So there will be a Dynamite that they're promoting as the Dynamite Holiday Bash, which will air at either 10 p.m. or whenever the Celtics-Bucks game ends. December 30th is going to be New Year's Smash Night 1 with special commentator Chris Jericho. And then January 6th, going against the big NXT New Year's show, will be New Year's Smash Night 2, where Snoop Dogg will be the guest.
So wait, one of them is New Year's Evil? That's what NXT has?
NXT is New Year's Evil on January 6th.
How is it? Wait, New Year's Evil? Like, shouldn't that be New Year's Eve? Shouldn't that be closer to before January?
Well, it's evil. It's not following the regiment of a calendar.
Gotcha.
It's its own. It decides when the year ends.
Yeah, it's the Abaddon calendar.
Yeah. NXT is deciding. You know what? 2020. Let's extend it by 6 days.
Why
Can't
not?
have enough of this year.
Why not? It's been a great year. So, yeah, 10 o'clock start potentially for Dynamite. Do you think that'll hurt?
What does that mean for us?
Probably a long night, or maybe we just start, we just do it the next day perhaps. Yeah, I mean, that kind of we'll probably have a bit of a holiday schedule ourselves.
We got our big Christmas show the next day.
You're right. How are we going to do that?
We'll worry about this December 22nd.
Yeah.
Main event was MJF against Orange Cassidy with the Dynamite Diamond Ring at stake after last week's Battle Royal. MJF immediately stomps him down and breaks the sunglasses, and he's controlling him until a Stun Dog Millionaire is hit, but then Orange misses the orange punch, hitting his hand into the post, and this became MJF's target all match long, destroying this man's right hand. He was bending at it. He placed it around the ring turnbuckle. Just great, just working over the hand here. We also had the inner circle at ringside, and Guevara ran Orange Cassidy into the post, and MJF just continues attacking the hand. The other baby faces from the locker room come out to back up the best friends who are outnumbered as Cassidy makes his big comeback with a tope suicida and tornado DDT, followed by the deep impact. One sequence I really enjoyed was MJF, who hit a shoulder breaker, followed by a power bomb, and then Orange Cassidy kicked out of the power bomb, but he kicked out using the good shoulder to put his weight on to kick out of it, which maybe it was a coincidence, but he did it, so he's getting all the credit for it. There was a springboard swanton by Cassidy to the inner circle on the floor, and we were getting Jericho with the bat, Ortiz with the mad ball, and MJF catches him with the heat seeker as he re-enters, tries to use the rope for leverage, but gets caught. And MJF has tossed the bat with referee Bryce Remsburg's back turned, and he throws the bat and does the Eddie spot, but Cassidy doesn't grab it. So then Cassidy does the Eddie spot, and Bryce catches MJF with the bat, but instead of throwing the match out, he just throws the bat out. And Orange hits him with the beach break for a near fall. He gets caught in the salt of the earth. He's pounding down on the hand, but Cassidy is able to escape and hits the orange punch while selling the hand because he used the bad hand to hit the orange punch. MJF kicks out, so Orange hits a second one with the bad hand Wardlow gets the MJF's foot on the bottom rope. There's a big brawl, and out of nowhere comes Miro, who attacks Orange Cassidy and is giving Dominic a run for his fashion sense. Puts his hands in his pockets with Kip as they watch MJF roll over and pin Orange Cassidy. So MJF gets the Diamond Ring for another year.
I thought this was a really entertaining match. I think maybe some of the overbooking in the finish is going to bother some people. On a TV show, I can really excuse it because it's meant to set up your other programs. You have Orange Cassidy, of course, with Miro. And I think having MJF with that ring for another year only makes sense. It's like the gimmick lives with a heel like him. He's done so well with it that I can't see anybody else really achieving the same level. I think MJF is an incredibly underrated in-ring performer. We talk about his promos. Everybody talks about his promos all the time. But when he has these like matches like this, his intensity is very impressive. His technique is really impressive. And I thought this was a match that showcased that, along with, of course, Orange Cassidy's fantastic babyface fire and comeback.
I thought both were great in the match. I thought like MJF just controlling the match in the heel role. I just thought like he has such a great command of the flow of the match, and Cassidy was such a phenomenal babyface for him. I thought these two had great chemistry. I really liked it. I was with you. Like, yeah, there was a lot going on at the end, but it was never to me where it was taking away from my enjoyment of the match. I will caution and say that when we get to Miro and Kip Sabian against the Best Friends, this better be the tag match of all tag matches.
Why? Because we've gone through so much to get there?
It has been months to get to this tag match.
Have they not done the tag itself? Like, it almost feels like they've moved past that, and it's now Miro and Orange Cassidy that's the program.
Well, I'm more interested in seeing Miro and Cassidy than I am seeing Miro and Kip Sabian against the Best Friends. Although in the right setting, like they can have a very good match, but it just seems like this has gone on for a long time.
It has, and with story elements that I don't think have been all that endearing for Miro, unfortunately. Thankfully, all the physical things that Miro has done has been, maybe aside from that first match, have been really good. Like, he just shows up and just like kicks ass and has that great physical charisma about him, even in that very obnoxious Versace shirt.
Miro then destroyed the security members that came out, throwing one guy off the stage, which led to Tony yelling, "It's Christmas, and these men have families. I hope they weren't watching." Not if they're over 50, but the rest might have seen it. And then MJF is just yelling into the camera, "I beat him clean in the middle." And we go off the air with Miro looking like a maniac with the sweater.
Yeah. A probably very expensive, ugly-looking sweater. I enjoyed Dynamite tonight. It was overall, a pretty eventful show. You had a great return of Sting. The Kenny thing is maybe disappointing if you were expecting something different from what you saw on Tuesday. But if you didn't see Tuesday, or if you just wanted to see Kenny on the show, I think you would have quite liked it. It was a good follow-up to last week, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, like, I didn't think it was a blowaway segment with Omega and Callis, but that is the big angle in wrestling at the moment. So overall, I love that tag match at the beginning. Like, that was just a phenomenal match. I enjoyed the main event too. I thought those were like the strongest matches on the show. The tag match was, we are very spoiled by the match quality. There would have been times like that match would have been talked about for months afterwards, and it's almost like we just expect it now with certain combinations.
I agree. No weaknesses on the show, I thought. Maybe aside from the SHAQ.
The SHAQ thing was pretty underwhelming for me.
But it was SHAQ on TV.
That's true. They did get him. Let's go to the forum. Tonight's show generated a 7.82 rating. Stevie writes, "A pretty good episode. I have serious, in capital letters, issues with the security AEW had on TV tonight. What happened to Atlas Security? I missed their mullets, gold chains, and ability to maintain order." Well, I don't think the Atlas crew was getting dumped off the stage.
Probably not. No, they would have handled this. Adam from the street says, "We all learned tonight that Miro and Dominic Mysterio have the same taste in sweaters. What do you guys think Dominic's favorite video game is?
Guys, it's all about Shaq Fu. All right. He's back. Our own Shaquille O'Neal. Brandon from New Jersey. My dearest Ann Rands. What's up, bros? Been a minute since we spoke. Just wanted to check in. Was watching the AEW, and man, a lot of smoke and mirror stuff going on. From AARP Stinger, American Association of Retired People, to Shaq getting humiliated without Charles Barkley doing said humiliating. It just made me ask this question. Why does AEW need all of this in between good wrestling? Is the high quality of wrestling not enough? Just my thoughts.
It's not enough. Not enough if they want to attract an audience beyond the audience that's watching them every single week. That ultimately is their goal, to expand the base that they've managed to retain up until this point.
Do you think, because I was thinking about this today, was that this week between Sting and the promotion of Shaq, like those are two elements to the show that you would think could attract a older audience. Do you think that there would be any of that kind of sampling, or do you feel that things are just like that is the guaranteed demo for NXT every week? And I'm not saying they necessarily tie NXT this week, but do you see like these kinds of experiments? Like, should that be a priority for them of going after an older audience that will increase their overall viewership?
I think this is really the first week we're going to be able to see the effects of Sting in AEW. So I think that'll tell you a whole lot about what the possibility is. I certainly think that they made a great attempt tonight by not just bringing Sting on, but telling you that, hey, we remember the same wrestling that you guys grew up on. This is not Sting all of a sudden having the NWO come out to help him, like for no fucking reason at WrestleMania. This is a product that respects the wrestling that you grew up on. So.
And all the legends, like they are not there to be punchlines on the show. Like they treat all the legends as such. Like they're not there to be punchlines.
But certainly nobody on the level of Sting. You know, like Tully's great, like Jake is great, but like Sting is a different level, especially being treated the way he is. So I'm very curious to see what that rating would be for that quarter. I really don't know. I don't know if Shaq is the key to getting that 50 plus audience, because like, why are they watching NXT? NXT doesn't have any of this shit.
Let's move on. Unless you want to go through, do we have meanderings?
Yeah, we do. You're not going to go through all of them?
Is it time to throw Matt Hardy into the lake of reincarnation and have him come back as a road agent? The rumor of Yoel Romero fighting Huntington Beach City Council member Tito Ortiz, the right move, or is Combate Americas trying to legally assassinate a political figure? The holiday season nears, and what a lovely time it's going to be. The mirth and the tidings of great joy. The stockings hung with tender and care. I cherish this time of year. I'm just a man with a Christmas wish, but alas, it's a dream deferred. I think we have our other politician that's campaigning here. P.S. It wouldn't be nice. I wouldn't be nice if I didn't pledge my fealty to you, Mr. Pollock, spelled incorrectly, by saying congratulations on your new arrival. Well, thank you, Brandon from New Jersey.
Fealty. I don't know. I've never seen that word before.
Well, Brandon's he's rewritten the dictionary, so.
Thank you. Noah from Vaughn. After last week's show, this definitely felt like a slight step down in terms of quality, but even still, it was a very enjoyable episode. Really top-tier main event, fun opener, and the Ultimatum segment was super entertaining. It seemed Kenny and Don essentially cut the same promo they did on Impact, but I didn't really mind because only 250,000 people saw it last night anyway, and it was a really good promo by both guys. 8 out of 10 show tonight. One thing I just say is that I watched Raw on Monday, and the difference in pacing between the 2 hours tonight and even the first 2 hours of Raw was astounding. AEW does such a great job at making these 2 hours fly by, leaving you wanting more. That is absolutely the case, and take it from people who have to write down every single moment of events that happen. Like, I can't rest when I'm watching AEW because every single moment there's something going on. Raw, it's like, you know, I could skip half the show because half of it is like recap videos or entrances. So it's certainly an urgency in AEW throughout the entire thing, making you never want to change the channel for every second.
Noah writes, after last week's show, Andrew from St. John, I am for now enjoying the heel promos from Kenny Omega and Don Callis, but would like a clear sign where things are going. The main event was fun, but I was hoping for the orange win, and the finish was a groaner for me. The angle with Abaddon and Sheeta was like a zombie movie, but I loved it. Again, AEW observed a hard one-match limit for the women's division, and that match was only 70 seconds long. It's really unacceptable how little space they are trying to shoehorn multiple feuds for the women into. I mean, tonight was establishing Abaddon, that you know the direction they're going in, and it's going to pay off with a title match.
Well, what's the other feud? Like, I guess, like, what is it? Serena Deeb's currently involved with Jade Cargill, it looks like. That really wasn't a whole lot.
They set up the tag, for next week. And then the other thing was, like the stuff with Brandi tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about, how important the women's roster feels in AEW compared to how important it feels in NXT or Impact, it's not going to be that much of an argument. Even like, in comparison to the main roster WWE, that's definitely AEW's biggest weakness. So.
That's to me like a large picture issue. But tonight specifically, like Abaddon winning quick, I have no problem with that. That match didn't need to be 5 minutes.
Sure, but I guess Andrew is mostly talking about like more, women wrestlers being featured in prominent roles. And I mean wrestlers, not Brandi doing a cutscene in the back or with SHAQ or something like that.
That's a pretty big segment, like the SHAQ segment.
Yeah, but it's not women's wrestling, which continues to be the. Anyway, it's an argument for perhaps a later time. We got a Muggin finally who says the Inner Circle's Come to Jesus meeting planted the seeds for a Sammy Guevara face turn. Kenny Omega, on the other hand, is reinvigorated with his egomaniacal promo, and having Don Callis by his side could only mean great things going forward. MJF versus Orange Cassidy was a very good main event, with Miro looking the best he's looked since coming to AEW. The SHAQ Brandi sit-down promo was intriguing. Now that the shock has worn off of Sting's TNT homecoming, I'm approaching his AEW run with some trepidation. That said, his interactions with Cody and by extension, Darby did foreshadow potential matches with both men. Yes.
All right. Well, there you go. A lot of interesting talking points coming out of AEW Dynamite and where they're going with a very ambitious, I think, set of shows that they're going forward with to try and make, this was, we're talking about a year ago next week was that infamous December 18th show where you had NXT won the night and it went off the air with the Dark Order dominating things. And that was really a low point for AEW this year. I mean, they are, first of all, they're not taking any weeks off. They're presenting new episodes of Dynamite throughout the holidays. And I think that you're seeing that this is their aggressive push, and they're going to go outside of the box that they've created for themselves, I think, in order to find all those new eyeballs. Last week was step one. And tonight, we're going to see what the impact of last week provides and what kind of number they do tonight with all the different things that they had promoted. They had a laundry list of segments that they promoted and matches tonight. The key ones to me being Sting and SHAQ and how well those segments perform.
Mm-hmm. I'm not expecting this week to nearly do as well as last, but some of the demos I think will be interesting to look at. I mean, last week was almost kind of unfair. You had such a major match in Moxley and Omega to contend with, but you can certainly look at this week's rating to see if how much audience they retained for a lesser main event.
I think it'd be a big disappointment if this was back to just a normal level. Like after all the buzz of last week, like you would think that there would be a lot of anticipation for this week's show. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting number that comes out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can send everybody over to go check out Up Next as they review tonight's episode of NXT coming out of War Games. And Wai and I are going to be back on Friday night live at 10:15 p.m. Eastern time for all members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. Impact Wrestling on Twitch, big deal. We were breaking records last week on Rewind to SmackDown.
Oh my God, the return of John Pollock.
Massive draw.
You came down from your chopper, then you got into a bus for some reason, and we did the whole podcast from your bus.
Maybe this Friday I'll do the exact same recap I did last week.
Just not as good.
Yeah, I'll do the worst one.
Yeah.
So we will be back on Friday night. Looking ahead, it's a very busy weekend. We've got the New Japan card at Budokan Hall Friday, Triple Mania, Impact's got a show on Saturday, and of course, Wai Ting and Pauline with Total Recall, which is the biggest show of the weekend.
Yes, of course.
Okay, that's it for us. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Check out postwrestling.com for all of your latest news, postwrestlingcafe.com, and that is it. May you all seek out your holiday sweaters. I don't know where I was going with that one, but that's it. Good night.